Hi, and welcome to Two Guys Philosophise with Sean Lake and Peter Wise. So today's episode is called Magic Mushrooms and Evolution, plus some other stuff as usual. Please do subscribe to our channel below and enjoy. Hello everybody.
Hi everyone.
Welcome back. We're going to continue just for a moment what we left off the last one, where I was questioning whether thoughts actually have energy. Now this whole business about the mind and the brain and where thoughts come from, you know, what effect does the brain have on our thoughts? Bearing in mind, I would say that our thoughts don't come from our brain, but our brain kind of acts as a decoder, you know, for what it receives from our minds. So we talked a bit before about the huge jump in size in the human brain, and you had a very interesting theory about that, and that was to do with primates coming down out of the trees.
Stoned ape theory.
The stoned ape theory, yeah. I hadn't heard of that, but
or hypothesis.
Do explain about this, because I thought it was great.
So just in a nutshell, the theory goes like this. When our climate started to change and chimps needed to move from tree to tree for their food source, the trees eventually got so far apart that the chimps had to actually start using the floor to get from tree to tree. And in their search for food, while they were doing this, it was kind of foraging, they would look out for obviously things like scat and stuff like that, anything interesting they might want to eat, and they would come across these mushrooms, and they would ingest these mushrooms, and these mushrooms would give them an experience which would open their consciousness to something other than what they were used to. And I think that is where we started also expressing ourselves in terms of art and cave paintings and hand pictures and stuff like that during that period, which I find is also very interesting, because that's like kind of creative.
Right.
You know, like that's a creative kind of thing that you do, and
yeah.
Only kind of aware beings create things just for the sake of creating things. So,
yeah.
So the theory is that ingesting these fungi, which grew in scat, increased the neural activity over thousands of years, and that is why apes, or why we developed consciousness. Kind of that's the explanation for where consciousness came from. How come we elevated from the other animal species and became aware and were able to learn and do that kind of thing. So basically psilocybin mushrooms opening the minds of primitive man to other possibilities, and therefore giving them creativity, and therefore the wheel, and therefore pyramids, and therefore Eiffel Tower, and therefore
right. Okay.
Yeah, right.
You mentioned the word earlier, mycelium. And this was about, you know, mushrooms are one of the oldest life forms on Earth. I think it's something like 2 billion years ago. I don't know. I'm not. They are. I'm not good with facts. Yeah, they are. But there was something about being able to, being that they are the oldest life forms. We technically speaking, we've evolved from that. You know, from a mycelium line.
Yeah,
is it?
Yeah.
So we are actually human fungi.
We are. We're made up of a good percentage of bacteria and fungi anyway. So
is like the DNA of fungus the same as humans? Do you know? Similar, not the same, obviously.
Okay, so
do you know if it? I mean,
I know that our human body is primed to work with mushroom medicine. We now have clinical proof that lion's mane with B3 and psilocybin can reverse Alzheimer's and dementia. These are all in animal studies, obviously. So shiitake mushrooms increase lifespan. Certain mushrooms that are eaten in the Himalayas help the people who climb to high altitudes reach those altitudes because it aids with oxygen intake. I think it's shiitake, if I'm not mistaken.
You can buy them in the
You can buy them.
shops.
You can buy them in the shop. So as one guy, because we got into this yesterday, and I said, look, I really don't know enough about the logistics and the statistics, and to be credible in this interview. So I need to go and study, and like while I did that last night, I just fell down this rabbit hole of every mushroom that is available has some kind of health benefit. Lion's mane, dementia.
No, there's poisonous ones that will kill you.
They'll kill you. You're right. Yes. Yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah. No. You're right. You're right. Yeah.
Again, I suppose it's a question like back in prehistoric times of primates experimenting with all different food sources.
Well, what I was getting to is I don't know if you've heard about the cordyceps mushroom.
Cordyceps mushroom.
I'd highly, if you really want to freak yourself out, just Google cordyceps and ants. Okay, so basically.
How do you spell that?
ANTS.
No,
cordyceps. CORDISEPTS, but I'm sure Google will tell you how to spell it anyway if you get close enough to it. But cordyceps fungi basically the spores inhabit the body of an insect, an ant. It takes over the neurochemistry of that ant, so it changes the ant's behavior completely.
Yes.
To aid it. So it literally possesses the body of that ant or that insect. That insect will climb to the highest point it can find, stay there. The cordyceps mushroom will grow, expand, and release its spores back down into an ant. So are these mycelium cleverer than us? Are they on just a?
That's just another way of some form of life. Plant life finding to be able to pollinate itself and reproduce itself.
Okay. So now, but it's literally taking over the nervous system of an organism that is very primitive and very, very programmed in a specific way. And it's changing the way that animal behaves, so that it can benefit, so that it can procreate, so that it can be.
Okay,
so is that not clever? I mean, that's
is that like learned behaviour from this particular fungi?
Fungi, cordyceps.
Is it a learned behaviour? Okay.
Well, how do we know? We don't know.
Because fungi were around before ants.
Yeah.
So
let's get into cat lovers. You know the cat lady. Everyone loves the mad old cat lady.
Okay.
All right. There is a pathogen called. I'm going to give you the name just now, but basically 80% of the world has it. You can't get toxoplasmosis. Toxoplasmosis. Now, toxoplasmosis is a bacteria that is a pathogen that gets into the bloodstream of mice. The mice lose their fear of cats and actually develop a love for cats. So the mice will go to the cat. The cat will, fearlessly, the cat will eat the mouse, develop toxoplasmosis, which causes through its spittle and whatever, us to get toxoplasmosis, which makes us love cats even more. So when we see cats, which is why the crazy old cat ladies are crazy old cat ladies. They just want more cats.
So it's almost like putting out hormones.
So it puts up pheromones, whatever, and that person who has toxoplasmosis is completely addicted to cats. They love cats, they want cats, they adore cats, they hate dogs, and you'll find there are people out there that either love cats or they freaking hate cats. In reality, they're evil. They'll eat your eyes out the first opportunity they get. They're selfish. They don't give you any love. Why on earth have one? unless it was drugging you. And, you know,
I don't know how
obviously
you
that's what
started
it's doing.
talking about cats, but anyway.
But we're talking about consciousness and the consciousness of these fungi. I mean, if they're controlling
I want to
people,
come back to that.
If they're controlling people so that we love cats so much, so that that fungus can carry on living, because what happens is the cat will then have a poo or go to its cat litter, or mice will come, mice will then dig around there, they'll get the toxoplasma, and the circle goes round again.
At the end of the day, all
so you're not feeding your cat, you're feeding the toxoplasmosis.
We're a vehicle for food to get to the fungi.
Well, aren't these fungi communicating with us in different ways all the time?
That's a very interesting question. I mean, I've never had a chat with a mushroom, so I'm very interested.
I have.
Okay. Right.
Yeah.
Well,
do
tell.
I have had magic mushrooms, and
okay.
In my humble opinion, and this is just my experience, you're welcome to rip it to pieces. But when I did take the mushrooms, I felt incredibly connected to nature. I could feel the wind play with the trees. I could feel the way the trees appreciated being moved by the wind. I could feel, I had a wee against a tree, I could feel the tree going, "Thank you so much for the nutrition." Yeah, okay. I have laid on the ground, and I have given the earth my energy, and I felt the earth vibrate right back to me and go, "Thank you, like here's some more." Now, I could have been tripping balls, okay? I've really been tripping balls. Or I could have been speaking in another language to another entity that we haven't communicated with on the level that we're used to communicating.
You said earlier, in one of the other podcasts, that you don't talk to people about psychedelic experiences. You don't talk to people who haven't had a psychedelic experience about psychedelic experiences. And I have not had a psychedelic experience, and that's why it all sounds so fucking airy-fairy. But nevertheless, I know you as a person, and I know you're doing your best to describe in words something which probably can't be described in words. You did try. The best way you put it to me was it's more real. Being on a trip is actually more real than this kind of normal reality we have. That's fine. Go on.
Somebody gave me an analogy, and it's an analogy from some famous person. So whoever you are out there, you're brilliant. We love you to bits. I'm not stealing what you're saying. I don't know who you are. But they said that for them, I think it might have been Terence McKenna, but they said that for them, they felt like they had lived in a huge mall the whole of their lives with the lights off, and all they had was a torch, and they had navigated this mall with this torch the whole of their lives. And once they took 5 grams of psilocybin mushrooms, it was like suddenly everyone just switched on the lights, and they could see everything. So
what? They make you see in the dark.
So you see what's not there, or you see what you can't normally see, or you see through. The other interesting thing about mushrooms is one of the side effects of mushrooms is hearing. People who have hearing loss when they take mushrooms, their hearing becomes.
You're talking about psychedelic mushrooms, or
not necessarily lion's mane. Lion's mane is
what is lion's mane?
Lion's mane is a mushroom. You can buy it at the health shop. If you are looking for good mushrooms are called adaptogens because what they do. So my mycelial research and my co-tier, I think they don't even quote me on that word, but the people who are into mushrooms are saying the mushrooms that you should take are lion's mane, shiitake, turkey tail, and not portobello. So those 3 are not portobello in terms of cognitive function and antidepressive properties and health and so on. So just so you know.
Yeah, my question is why would nature choose to, well, I mean, I know obviously for natural preservation some type of mushroom is highly toxic, and obviously early man and animals learn to avoid the toxic ones. But it's also noted that animals, it's not only putting it back now to the effect eating mushrooms had on changing the human brain. Those 200,000 years ago or whatever it was, when the human brain went through an enormous change in the prefrontal cortex, and it developed this huge prefrontal cortex which is now responsible for lots of different things. What does the development of the brain have to do with the fact that it's increased our consciousness? Because there are other animals who were eating the mushrooms as well, and there were other animals before us.
Yes, and thank you very much for screwing over my theory, because I've been trying to wrap my head around that little problem that you told me about since yesterday, and I've got some kind of pseudo answer for you, but carry on. I'm lost now. No, we're talking about the...
Yeah, animals eating mushrooms. Look, it's really weird to think of the mushroom is a fungus, and most of it is under the ground, grows under the ground, and they're all connected. I don't know, there's a theory that all...
Well, it's not a theory, it's true. It's mycelium
all over the world, all throughout the whole world.
Yeah, the network of...
So it's like a kind of a brain, almost,
and
it functions obviously in a different way to our own brains.
And it's been here for 200 million years longer than we have.
So it has a degree of consciousness. And I'm just thinking right now, human beings are quite arrogant in thinking our particular type of consciousness
is the right one, is the way,
the best one,
or our way of communication is the right way of communicating. Sitting in front of a tree and going, talk to me, that's not going to work.
Yeah. But communicating with mushrooms, eating mushrooms on a diet, what I'm always interested in is where our consciousness is going. Something of that is going to slip into every episode. As the brain grows, does consciousness grow? I think it does. Because the brain is growing, it has more receptors.
Mark Zuckerberg.
What?
Mark Zuckerberg. He should be the most spiritual, conscious person on earth by those standards.
Why? What do you mean?
Because he's got a big brain and he's just unconscious. Well, then he's like a robot. So nothing against you, Mark. I don't know you, but that's how you look. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So we kind of had a bit of a brain fog there, but we were talking about the mushroom, the fungi, as a brain with a different consciousness, and I think to me this is something really quite profound, to think of. You could even think of an ant colony as one unit, which together has a whole consciousness. You can't measure consciousness. You can't measure it, and I believe it comes in many, many different forms. You can't measure it mathematically, should I say? And one thing that intrigues me is the difference between people and animals is that we, as people, through our brains, I don't know, or through our minds, or through our consciousnesses, have a desire to find out things. We are a curious species. You don't get an elephant who wants to know what a tree is made from, what wood it is, how the height of it. You don't get that animal kingdom, any other animal kingdom, wanting to find out about anything about its. It might sort of search its surroundings, but it doesn't want to know why it's here, it can't think along those type of, and that's where our brain is developed, past the animal brain. I don't know, Peter. What about the animals in SeaWorld, the whales in SeaWorld? They would literally commit suicide. That indicates some level of consciousness. I mean, if you were totally and that's a whale.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think consciousness has anything to do with intelligence either. There are like...
No, did I say it did?
You did, yeah.
Did I? Oh,
you were like kind of going... That's why I said the Zuckerberg like remark. Like, I don't think it's got anything... I know the most unintelligent people who are like so conscious, it's unbelievable. Like, they haven't been to school, they haven't had the education, but they know the truth. So they just... You know, they have that spark. I don't know what it is, but yes.
Well, I don't know if it's the ability to tap into a greater consciousness which is already out there. You know, where do we get our creative ideas from? Where do we get our thoughts from? We don't get them from our brain. Our brain is just organic material, you know. Our brains, you know, I've said before, they're made up of atoms, and each atom, as I put it very simply, has a spark of consciousness in it. And our brains are like the connectors.
Well, our brains are there to put things together. So let me just kind of put a new spin on the brain for you. Okay, so light reaches your brain at a different speed to what sound does, right? At a different speed to what that hand touch does. I mean, we're talking micro fractions of a second at a different speed to what that hand feels, right? Yet your brain, receiving that all at different times, puts it together so that it all seems like one time.
Right. Okay.
So our brains are incredibly deceitful, because what we're seeing is not really the order in what we're experiencing things, because light is coming in at a different, noise is coming in at a different speed, everything is coming in at a different speed. Our brain is putting it together. So I honestly just really believe our brain is like a piece of machinery. It's an antenna. I don't think it's the brain that creates consciousness. I think consciousness is picked up by the brain, but I think consciousness creates consciousness in the brain. If that's...
Yes, I mean, I think the human brain, human beings do maintain just one form of many different consciousnesses, but we are evolving, and I wonder if, you know, human beings are a great significant part of the greater consciousness also evolving, if you can call it that. It depends what you mean by evolving. I mean, at the moment, like I said before, we have a great desire to find out things, how things work, why things work. You know, why does mankind have this great desire to find out, like no other animal
Well, it's
does?
Totally neurotic.
It's got to be something to do with consciousness, with the mind, you know, the exploratory mind. It's not just the neurons firing in our brain that gives us these ideas to search for planets out there and discover black holes or you know, microbes and things like this. We want to know how we work, how the universe works, how everything works. We want to know why it exists, you know.
You know, I probably think a really integral part in consciousness in the beginning was we, to survive, had to be curious. We had to dig that hole to see if we could get that root, or lift that stone to see if we could get those. Yeah. So I'm wondering if the two of them aren't kind of connected, like very closely.
Well, it's a question of did human consciousness evolve alongside the human brain? And I think it probably did. You know, I'm certain it did. But because I mean, you've got to be.
At what time? At what point did it occupy the human brain? At that, are you saying that it changed over time as a whole?
Consciousness,
yes. Consciousness,
yes. Yes. It started off as the fundamental vibrations
of
the quantum field of probability.
Yeah.
It became the universe, and it became things of matter, and it's ultimately, you know, put its finger. We're kind of an expression of that. But I don't know. I kind of torture myself myself with questions that I know can't be answered, like what's the purpose of it all? Where are we all headed? Because if we knew if we thought there was a purpose to life, if you're religious, you think there's a purpose to life, therefore you conduct your life in a certain way. If you're a certain type of person, you conduct your life in a certain type of way. But why do we feel why do we feel the need to question everything the whole time?
Do you know, I think that is a complete luxury, come to think of it, because we have the luxury to think that way. If you think about the average person in Central Africa with no food, and their primary thoughts are survival.
I agree. It is a luxury to be able to sort of get to a place where
you can think and talk like that. And that's, I think, is part of the evolution. More people are doing that.
And that kind of just makes me feel a bit nervous about the stories that keep coming up, all the conspiracy theories about how it's only a very few people that control the world, that control the human race, and we don't realise we're being controlled because it's all done at such minute increments that we don't realise we're being controlled into having to sign forms, having to go to meetings, having to answer the phone, having to do our work, having to buy things, having to, there's things that we must do today, things that we have to do tomorrow, blah, 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 and then you die. And it's like, it just reminds me of
what is the point of all of this?
Yeah, I mean, I certainly, for me, there's been a personal change in that I no longer feel the desire so much to know about these answers to questions which can't be answered yet.
But isn't that funny that it happens at this time of your life where, I hate to sound like depressing, but it's coming toward the last part of your life. It's not a priority for you as a species, for you as part of the species anymore, to be inquisitive, to find out things, to innovate, to make. That's not where you are right now. That's the youngsters more connected to what's actually happening today.
The youngsters, bastards.
The
No, I understand what you mean. It's almost like I've kind of retired from thinking like that, because I've come to the point where I realise that no matter how much I know, it will never be enough. So, a little knowledge is a good thing, but it's also a dangerous thing if you think you know more than you actually do. And I have trouble with that.
Look, I also think you calm down a little bit.
I've calmed down from being a what?
When you are younger, you are so wrapped up in these conspiracy theories. Everything is a conspiracy, and everything is this, and everything is controlled. And the older you get, the more I think you start to understand the human race. And no, there is no Illuminati. What there are very rich people who only mix with themselves because they couldn't mix with people like you or me. We couldn't understand their lifestyle. We couldn't understand their wants, their needs, so they stick together. They're not the Illuminati. They're just a bunch of rich people that stick together and make things work, like the Boy Scouts, like so everything starts losing its immediate danger. Oh my God, the world has been taken over by the 1%, and of course they own the world. What do you expect?
How do we deal with these people in power? We just vote them in again and again and again, wherever we are in the world. Nothing changes. The same thing goes on and on and on. So I just think we're on the cusp now.
How relevant?
The bridge of a new change, a bigger change.
Yes. How relevant are politicians today? How many people actually listen to them?
Nobody listens to them, but
they're their own eco bubble.
We had 65% of the people come out here in South Africa to vote for what was a very important election last year. That's not too bad, but a lot of people obviously have great difficulty getting to voting stations in Africa. So that's a pretty good turnout, and they've voted for a government. It's the same as every other government in the world. It's really kind of ripping off its people, doing what it likes, like I said before, controlling what drugs are made legal, and
my great argument
put into pills, and controlling what isn't it weird how the only kind of legal drug, and one of the worst of all, is alcohol? But if they're making us into fucking animals by giving us alcohol.
So they legalized mushrooms in, I think it was Portugal, and they did the crime stats before that and the crime stats afterwards. And there's something like a 19% decrease in criminal activity, there's a 29% decrease in domestic violence. It changed. It changes the human mindset. It takes us out of the stress that we're in, that when we get home we have to beat up our wives because we're so frustrated at our boss. You know, psychedelics give you that little step back where you can go, where you can look at the world from a second person perspective and go, okay, that wasn't a day I'd like to do again, but like I'm not going to let it affect my consciousness right now because I want to be happy right now, and that's in the past.
I still think, you know, these powers that be, they do want to keep us in a state of fear. A lot of people are very gullible, passing on these WhatsApp messages and Facebook posts without checking sources and things like that, and everybody panics, you know, for no reason at all. You know, you've got to make sensible, calculated decisions about everything and anything that you see, hear or read. But I think that's, you know, why would they? I go back to that kind of schoolboy question. Hey, Daddy, why does somebody want to keep controlling me the whole time? Why does somebody
they have to. I really don't understand how people can't understand that there has to be a class of people controlling the classes under them. Because if they don't, you'll have people moving in from up the road there, the lower class area, into this area because there's no laws that say that. Oh, my arms are going that. Yeah, there's no laws. We need, unfortunately, we need the politicians because there's so many people out there, and not all of the people out there are completely sane.
I mean, look, politics has changed definitely in the last 1,000 or 2,000 years. It's not as brutal anymore. I mean, you have very brutal regimes. Even today, you still got one or two brutal regimes. But in the days of war, every regime was brutal. You had to be brutal to survive. You had to be warrior nations in order to survive. So I think we're slowly moving away from that brutality, even though it doesn't seem like that to somebody who's, you know, who doesn't have what I've got in life. But I think we're slowly moving away from that complete and utter, all those, you know, horrendous things that were done to you, you know, and the witch hunts, don't forget things like that, and the Spanish Inquisition, and all of these terrible things, and the massive genocides everywhere, all over the place.
Oh, yes.
You know.
Yes.
Now, if there's a genocide, it gets reported left, right, and centre. And sometimes, I mean, I don't know about this, but are genocides prevented? Does it help? You know, I would like to think it helps being able to spread this news. And this is part of how everything is changing. This is part of how consciousness is changing with us.
I was speaking to a Mason, and I asked directly, because I'm that kind of idiot, like, Masons, like, are you guys involved in like taking over the world and, you know, all these horrible things that you've been accused of? And his answer to me frightened me on one level, but on the other level made a lot of sense. If there is a rumor, Agenda 21 and the Illuminati want to get rid of like 2/3 of the population so that the 1/3 can work as slaves for them and whatever. According to him, it's not like that at all. According to him, if somebody has to make a decision, and the decision is let mankind carry on making babies and keeping the babies going and living and overpopulating the world and using up all the resources and then eventually dying off as a species, or do you create wars and famines and kill off a couple of 100,000, 1 million, have a genocide here, have a genocide to keep the population down? Are you doing a bad thing because you are saving the world? in your eyes, in their eyes, in his eyes, this is truly what he believes. You are saving the world by getting rid of. And that's like totally eugenics and sounds terrible, but it's the truth. If we were just left to multiply like we are, this place would be chaos.
If we were just left to multiply as we are. But look, the thing is, I think the future.
How many people have died in wars and famine and stuff like it in the last 10 years? Do you think? I don't know. I don't know. I'm just asking.
No idea.
That's a huge. It must be a huge amount of people. How would we be feeding those people now? How would we be looking after those people now?
Oh, I don't ever think it's a question of there's not enough place to grow food on this planet to feed the population. I don't think we'll ever have to worry about that.
I don't either, but they do.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm a little bit thrown by that because as far as I can see, we've grown from being apes to being what we call civilized. Okay, we have all these different things.
But that means we have now morals as well.
We have most of you guys have morals. I know, and ethics. Yeah. So we're definitely growing and changing in strange and wonderful ways. And now we can sort of speak in Sean's language, which always sounds very hippie to me anyway, and we won't get burnt at the stake for being a witch.
Yeah.
Now we can have our scientific theories without worrying about being executed like they did to Galileo. So definitely people are becoming wiser to what's going on in the world. We are now talking about consciousness. We are now talking about how to factor it into the very fabric of the universe. How to factor consciousness into the very fabric of the universe. And the great scientists of today, and I'm going to wind it up here, bud.
I was just about to say, I can sense you winding this up.
So, is there something you wanna add before? Because we've yacked on for a while now.
No, not really. Apart from the fact that whoever's watching have an absolutely brilliant day. Make it your best day possible. Live your best life. Have fun.
Yeah. What he said.
What I said. Cheers.
Thanks for tuning in, everyone. We'll catch you next time. Please remember to subscribe to our channel, and you all have a lovely day.